No feedback, all right. Proper professionals. Hello, welcome. My name's Ed. This is Chanel. We are your hosts today for Digital Adelaide. Thanks for coming.
Yes, are we excited to be here, first of all? Yes.
Can we get a little bit more excitement? Like, you're all marketing people and you've all got 2 days off work.
1, 2, 3, let's hear you. They're ready.
Just on that note, who here is here today to learn some really interesting marketing things, yeah? No? Who here is just here for 2-3 days off of work? Yeah, I thought so.
And tax deductible, boom, win, win, win.
Yeah. And hot tip, the food here is amazing, so get front of the line for every break and lunchtime both days. It is amazing, and I've heard have we got Korean chicken again? The best. I fought to get Korean chicken back on the menu this year because it is the best thing you will eat. It's amazing.
There won't be any left for anyone else now. You're going to stockpile it in.
That's it.
I would like to start with an acknowledgement of country, if I may. Namarni, Nanari Chanel Franklin, Yalakana Garna Yatanga Yawandi, Banakawara Wanga Tatugana Burkana, Mirna Kolataulana Tampandi. That was an acknowledgement of country in Ghana language, paying respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and also the spirit of the land. The Ghana language has been spoken here on the Adelaide Plains for over 80,000 years. So now, with our humbled curiosity and respect, may we learn to walk with the Ghana people together and in harmony. Thank you.
Now, to get started today, I'd like to invite Rubina, Jen and Ryan, the creators and all-around gurus of Digital Adelaide, to come on stage and say a few words.
Here they come. Digital Adelaide wouldn't be here without these three legends.
Who's up?
I get a mic. It's kind of weird, to be honest, not emceeing the event for the first time in a very long time. So I just want to say shout out to Ed and Chanel. Thank you so much. You guys are going to have a great day. I can see the energy is already going to be awesome. Just wanted to say thank you all for joining us for Digital Adelaide 2025. There are some familiar faces out there. It was nice to see you at Redro. But equally welcome if this is your first event. We hope that you have a wonderful day, that you meet some great people, because there is so much talent in the room, and never mind what we're going to see on stage over the next 2 days. In previous years, we've really focused on different themes around like the different channels. Some of you might know that the origins of this event was Social Media Day, so it's just social media as a channel. We've talked a lot about customer journeys, but this year we thought it's really time to bring it all together. And we've got some incredible sessions lined up. We've got some incredible keynotes. I hope that you all enjoy it. If you're finding it difficult to make a choice, I do have a tip between the streams. If you have questions for a speaker, go to that session, because the other one, you can catch up on the recording, but you can't ask a question to the recording. That's my tip. So across the 19 sessions, we've got 21 speakers. Thank you to all of our speakers. We're so privileged that you're all going to share your knowledge and experience and your perspectives with us all over the next 2 days. We're covering topics like AI. I was the first one to say it. It's okay, you guys can say it now.
Dollar in the jar, Rubina.
We've got, international markets. So, I'm personally really excited about that, seeing that I work in a global role day to day. We also, a lot around storytelling and the role that plays, social media, and, ultimately, some larger trends as well, particularly on LinkedIn this afternoon. So we're hoping that you all have a wonderful conference. Also, many thanks to Jen and Ryan, co-conspirators in crime. And thank you to you all and to your employers as well for supporting Digital Adelaide this 2025.
You two got away with that. That was lucky. Well done, Rubina.
Hey, thanks for coming. It is the 11th year of Digital Adelaide, so thanks to everyone for coming out supporting this. If you are here with a laptop or your phone, we do have Wi-Fi access. There you go. My head's in the way. So to access Wi-Fi, just grab the free Adelaide Wi-Fi on your phone or your device. Once connected, you'll be redirected to the login page. Real simple. Just click yes, 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 and you're good to go.
We will also be using Slido for the questions, the all-important questions. So be sure you snap a photo or access each room on your mobile phone to submit your questions. One very important thing, we all got a name badge on? We all wearing our name badge? Yes, few nods, perfect. If you can keep that on for the remainder of the event, that will be super, super helpful. So thank you for your cooperation with that.
And just with Slido, you can ask questions at any time during the session, so make sure you grab the QR codes there, ask questions on there, we'll get the questions on our devices, and we'll come on and do a Q&A after each speaker, so chuck your questions in. You can upvote questions that you like as well and that you want to ask, and we'll just go through them at the end of each session. We've also got to say a big thank you to our partners for making today possible. InDaily, Refuel Creative, Stack, Woolman's Lawyers, and AADC. Without those guys, we wouldn't be here today. So big thank you to these guys. We do have sponsor stands outside, just in the foyer, if you want to go and have a chat to them during the breaks.
Beautifully said, Ed. I think it's time to get into our first keynote. And he's sitting right here in front now. This is Jeremy Aubert, Fleet Space Technologies. From directing global media across 6 continents to leading space innovation, Jeremy Aubert is a master storyteller and tech visionary. Ed.
Now an exploration development manager at Fleet Space Technologies, he drives next-gen tech for defence and lunar exploration, working alongside NASA missions and Australia's Defence Space Command. That sounds really important.
It does sound very important. I think when you entwine all of that with storytelling, you're going to want to know what this man has to say. With a global executive MBA in defence and space, Jeremy provides, again, that storytelling that isn't just entertainment, it's a catalyst for leadership and breakthrough innovation. Please give a warm welcome to Jeremy Aubert. Let's hear it.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to start with a video that gives a little bit of a background to my career and where I've come from and gone to, and ending with a kind of seminal moment in my development.
You've got to find what you love. Your work is going to fill a large part of your life, and the only way to stay truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do.
And now for something completely different.
Stay hungry, stay foolish.
Listen to me, is this what you want to do? Then I'm going to do the bad people, okay? I'm going to you against the wall, I'm going to get you two little cunts.
When you look at your... Can you tell me...
Take your $10 a van, I'll show you something, Jeremy, Mr. Clever Aubert. I will show you something now.
That didn't go so well. You can turn off the camera now.
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation.
So clearly I made it out of South Africa. That was a moment that I learned something about communication. It's not just about the words that you say, it's about the change that you want to make. Change in mindset, in story, a moment, an outcome. That outcome specifically I wanted to change was someone's desire to break my legs. Now this man was a department head who had worked on a post-apocalyptic film that I was making in South Africa. The director had fired him mid-shoot, and he wasn't very pleased about that, and we were having a disagreement over money. Now, he wasn't just angry, he was hurt. He felt betrayed. And his story was that I'd come over and wasted his time and was trying to take advantage of him and was just gonna leave the country and leave him high and dry. So, honestly, if I'd thought that that was the story, I'd probably want to hurt me too. And I had to really think about what it was that I wanted to have as an outcome. Now, oh, that's the laser clicker. There we go. Goal number 1 was to leave the country with all my bones still intact. And goal number 2 was to leave gracefully, because we did intend to go back and film some more. So we couldn't have any burnt bridges left behind. So this wasn't about contracts. It wasn't about money or logic. It wasn't about what was technically fair. It was really about his story and mine. Epictetus, a Greek philosopher, said that we are not upset by what happens to us, but rather by our thoughts and interpretations of those events. So I couldn't just go in and try and convince him that my story was right and his was wrong. I had to go a bit deeper than that. Now, I had seen charismatic directors inspire big groups of people. I'd done negotiations and raised finance and done the sales and persuasion thing, but this was touching a bit deeper. This was on how we feel about something that's happened. And somehow, through this, I decided to meet him in person so that he knew that I wasn't trying to run away, but I thought I'd make it a public place, so I chose a McDonald's. Great spot to do negotiations when you're afraid someone might attack you. So we had the chat, and somehow, at the end of this meeting, we not only came to an agreement, but we had a handshake, a smile, and even a hug. And I don't know whether it was what I said or how I said it or the setting, but something changed from when we walked in to when we walked out. And I didn't really know how that had happened. I was 25, and this was the biggest thing I had ever done, and I was just kind of winging it. But it really sparked some curiosity in me, thinking about how did I manage to navigate that situation? How can I do it more in the future? How can I be more intentional rather than just instinctual and reactionary? So that started a bit of my journey of thinking about how communication can change things. And what struck me most was not just how I managed to walk away uninjured, but also how much his own story was affecting how he was approaching this. So this guy had fought in the Angola War. He had run a boxing club. He was a very rough man and rough solutions to his problems. And he had been screwed over by producers before. So he was projecting this pain and this anger that he's had in other situations onto me, which had nothing to do with me. And I had to get to the heart of that and disconnect that from myself. So that moment stuck, and I dove a bit deeper into thinking about psychology as my career was growing, and I discovered Aaron Beck, who was the father of cognitive behavioral therapy, and he extended onto Epictetus's work from 2,000 years ago, saying that cognitive distortions are faulty beliefs and perspectives we have about ourselves and the world around us. And really, it's through these perspectives, it's through these lenses that we not only tell stories about reality, but how we shape reality. And sometimes there's these distortions that come in that we say to ourselves, these stories that we say to ourselves, these visions that we have about how the world works, about how the world perceives us, about what people think about us, and about what makes us who we are. We think that for ourselves, it's our job, it's our hobbies, perhaps our friends, our past, our education. These things are the pillars that hold up who we are and say what we can or can't do, how the world will or won't take us, how they will or won't respond to us. And the thing that I was starting to figure out, and I think that a lot of people go through this as they grow up and learn more about themselves, is that these pillars can be castles made of sand, that once they fall away, we can become quite lost and not know what is it, what is that core that makes us who we are, and how have we told ourselves this story over time. So when that story breaks, when I was younger, my story was simple. I was the starving artist. I was the film guy who was either going to be wildly successful, having big feature films, or I was going to crash and burn, and I was going to sacrifice it all for this big dream. And it was going to be one or the other. There was no in between. I learned later that's called all or nothing thinking, which is a distortion, but at the time it felt right. And that's the reason why I was suffering these other things, is because I was sacrificing myself for this dream and I was going to make it. And South Africa was really proof of this for me, that this was correct, because I went from being broken. I ended up sleeping in a car in South Africa because we ran out of money, and it was this awful changing experience that was really difficult. And then a few months later, I was at the Cannes Film Festival on red carpets and selling this film to distributors. So I thought that this was the way that things worked, and this was the only way that things could work. And that my future was leading towards this one of success in feature film, and then that's what I wanted, and that's what was going to make me happy. I met an older producer there. He was in his late 40s. He had that vision accomplished. He had the McMansion in the Hollywood Hills. He had the film credits to his name. He had been going to these festivals every year since he was 25. Incredible adventures and stories. And we went to the Melbourne Film Festival together, and it was interesting when he got taken out of the element of sycophants and people looking to please him because of his status, how hollow those connections were, and how they didn't quite land the same way as they did in Cannes, where people actually cared. When we went out in the town of Melbourne, no one really cared about that, and his advances fell short. And after having quite a few drinks, he confessed to me how desperately lonely he was. and how he felt like he couldn't have a genuine, real connection with people, and how this world and this life had made it so that he was unable to get those things, and how he just wanted to have a family. He just wanted to find true connection and love. And so this was a chink in the vision for me, because here was this life that I was aiming towards and thinking would solve all of my problems. And this was this story that I was telling myself that this was the epitome. This was the thing that I needed to achieve. This was the goal and the milestone I had to get to. But it wasn't everything. It wasn't the whole picture. There was more to it than just that. And then, so in that glimpse of the future, I started to become a bit more unsure if this was really worth everything. And then when I was 27, my dad died. And that brought the carpet out from underneath me. And it really made me think about what really matters in life and what connects you. And, my dad raised me. He inspired me. And having him taken away, that pillar, changed everything. And I started to think, is happiness found on a red carpet? On film credits on IMDb? Is that going to be the thing that completes me? And I realized there was more, and I had to go and find that. I didn't know what it was, but I knew that it wasn't just sacrificing everything and throwing everything away for a dream. There has to be more. So I did what most 20-somethings who are a bit lost do. I jumped on a plane and went backpacking around the world, trying to find myself. And it was good. I landed in London and got a real job doing commercial media production, and I was starting to get paid, and things were starting to look good. It reminds me of a quote from Rumi, what hurts you blesses you. Darkness is your candle. Your boundaries are your quest. So I was expanding my boundaries. What else could be out there? In London, as you do, I met a girl from Adelaide and proposed and became engaged and ended up back in Adelaide, where I'd been since I was 15. And we had a child on the way. I took the company that I was working for in London and expanded it out to Asia Pacific. And now I had a wife and child. I had a successful business. I was going around Asia Pacific and I was making things. And I felt like, okay, I've got this thing now. I've figured it out. But what happened is it started to become very comfortable, but I wasn't learning or growing or changing anymore. I felt like I had reached a pause, a plateau, and perhaps given the past 20 years of seeking out danger and adventure and chaos, I just wasn't able to sit still. And there was a part of me that I'd never really indulged, that I'd never really listened to and been faithful to. And it was a part that started with my dad when I was a kid. We watched Star Trek together. He gave me the Foundation series by Isaac Asimov. He really instilled this love of science and science fiction. And so all my adult life, I'd been curious and consuming different bits of content and trying to teach myself just about something I was interested in. And I felt like an outsider looking into this world, but a world that I didn't have anything to contribute to because I was just a producer. I'm just the creative guy. I work in creative industries. I don't have a degree. I don't have a good resume for it. So I can appreciate, I can enjoy, I can look in the window from outside. And just as I was thinking this, and I was starting to feel like things were comfortable and that I would never be able to enjoy any of this, I saw a job posting that come up for Business Development Manager Space. That's a weird job title. What kind of a job is that? Who's got a job? Business Development Managed Space. And it was with the South Australian government, the Department of Trade and Investment, and I knew I wasn't qualified for it. But I wanted to just reach out a bit and touch it. I wanted to be somewhere around it, even though I knew I had nothing to offer. So I sent an email. Hi, with regards to this position, I have no tertiary qualifications and run a successful international media production company. But I'm willing to shut down my business and fire my employees and provide my own laptop to secure this role for which I'm greatly passionate. I've watched thousands of hours of YouTube videos on the space industry and physics, which I've been told by Jeff, my local barista, is likely the equivalent of a master's degree, and I hope is sufficient. I'm a team player and will happily provide matching printed t-shirts with Adelaide Space Gurus emblazoned on the front and back in a variety of fetching colors, which I'm sure everyone on the team will be more than happy to wear daily. In the unlikely event my solicitation does not result in an offer for this role, I do wish you the best of luck in your endeavors to find an incredible candidate who can, in the words of Mark Watney from The Martian, business develop the shit out of this, so that Adelaide can become a hub of space industry. Please do also expect an application at some point from my son, Oscar, who's currently 2 years old, but has shown great interest in science and space thus far. Yours truly, Jeremy Aubert. So that didn't get me the job, perhaps unsurprisingly, but the director did come back to me and said, your emails made my day. It made a chuckle and a laugh, and she introduced me to the head of arts at the Department of Trade and Investment. And we had lunch, and that was great. And that was that. That was the end of that story. But then, about 2 months later, I was on oyster boats outside Port Lincoln, filming a Foodland commercial. And I was at the airport, and my flight had been delayed. And I saw an acquaintance there that I'd run into at a wedding, Julian Tully. And I said, well, what are you doing here? I'm here to go to Whalers Way. We just did a rocket test. Oh, no shit, okay. And I'm here with my boss, Tiffany, the woman I'd sent the email to. She remembered my email, and this was the first time I had actually met and been with space people, real space people. And I launched into it. I was asking questions about orbital dynamics and about new technologies and new rockets and plans to explore the moon and Mars. And I just unloaded pent-up years of passion and intensity. And I think they were a bit, whoa, this guy's really serious about space. And I ended up sitting next to Julian on the flight back. And he said to me, Jeremy, so let me get this straight. You run an international media production company. You deal with senior stakeholders. You do business development, sales, marketing, leadership. And you know a lot about space that you've picked up from YouTube, it seems. You could have just applied for the job. I didn't think that was true. I didn't think that I had anything to offer. And it was like this vision of my own story that I've been telling myself cracked. And it broke apart. And it wasn't that I was just a storyteller, just a producer, just a creative guy with no university degree. I didn't have anything to offer. That broke and shattered. So he gave me the confidence. I credit him to this day for being the one who gave me the confidence to reach out and to challenge my own story and to think that I could actually rewrite it. So I went to the Adelaide Space Forum and put myself out there. And really, I was just there to say, can I help you tell your story? I was handing out business cards. If I could just do it at cost, I didn't care. I just wanted to be around it, be a part of it. And that's where I met Fleet Space Technologies. And they had a film that they needed help making in explaining their technology, digital beamforming. And I went down my rabbit hole. I watched lectures, and I figured it out, and I made this film, and I dropped a lot of hints while I was there about how I'd always loved space and talking about this and talking about that. And a few weeks after I finished the film, they offered me a job. So they were only about 30 people at that stage, and really, it was a small company, startup. You know, you never really know where it's going to go with a startup. And so shutting down my stable and thriving media production company was a big decision, and one that I was very thankful that my wife was very supportive of, to pursue this question mark and this rebranding, I guess, of myself. So I said yes. It took me a few months to shut it down. I said yes in April, joined in October, and made up my first title. They didn't know where exactly they were going to stick me, so I was the brand and media specialist, and I just jumped in wherever I could to help out. And it was here that I started to see that the things that I had learned, the things that I had picked up, the things that I thought were only applicable in this little box were actually incredibly cross-transferable, and not only that, but mission-critical. So starting at Fleet, because it was all hands on deck, there's only 30 of us, you help out where you can, I was able to jump into defense proposals, into concepts for lunar exploration, into every area of what the company does in satellites and Earth exploration and lunar exploration and Mars exploration, and slowly started to find a place for myself where I could contribute and add. And I wanted to make sure that I had the skills to be able to fully participate in this industry and not just be a watcher, but a player. And so that led me to my course doing the Executive MBA in Defense and Space. And the thing that really did is it brought me, we did 2 weeks in London, 2 weeks in Washington, and 2 weeks in Adelaide. And they connected us with all of these industry leaders, defense leaders. And the thing I kept running into, which was really surprising for me, was the importance of storytelling. So, 4-star Army general. You wouldn't think that he has a particular interest in storytelling, but he said to me that storytelling was mission critical. It's the thing that enables teams to work together. It's the thing that enables programs to be approved and not canceled by Congress. It's the thing that aligns people so that they're all pulling in the same direction. It makes people work. It makes people think. It makes people come together. And without that shared story, and we're not talking about storytelling from a point of fiction or inventing reality, but describing it. And this was mission critical to him. And it was the same that I heard from the chief technology officer at NASA. It was the same that I heard from the head of Defense Committee in the UK. All of them talking about the importance of communication, the importance of storytelling. And this was a revelation to me. I thought that I had this little box of skills, and that's all that they were good for. But really, it's so applicable in so many different ways. And that's when I started to really see it more and more in all the different places that I would interact with. And it brought me to thinking about storytelling not just as things that artists do, but things that can be used to make change. And that's really what you're trying to do every time that you're communicating something. You're wanting to have someone know something they didn't know before, change their behavior, change their thinking, change their feeling. You're trying to put a change out into the world. And that can be successful or not successful based on a lot of things. And so these things are really well known. This isn't a new discovery. Everyone uses these insights back from Aristotle, talking about the successful rhetoric techniques of ethos and being trust and authority, and pathos, connecting emotionally, and logos, which is connecting logically. But the thing he also recognized is that different audiences require different combinations of these things. Now, this was quite focused on spoken rhetoric, but it crosses into every form of potential communication. And there's a field of study called semiotics, which is the study of signs and symbols. And that really extends across to anything you could see, you could touch, you could hear, all of the senses bringing in information in all of its different forms. So the communication you think about for today, the way this space is put together, a big giant screen, my patches on my shoulder telling you that yes, I do work in space. All of these things communicate. And you can use all of these different types of communication and these forms of communication, not just in work, but in every aspect of life. Because when communication works, it doesn't just inform, it transforms. So as I was working across space and defense, I realized I needed a way to understand this, to harness this, because this was something that I felt I had brought from my experience in life and my other careers, and that I could use to make change, to make things happen, and to leave a lasting impact. And so to think about it, I wanted to put together not so much a formula, but a structure to hold it, a way to orient myself so that I made sure that I wasn't just thinking about me and what I want to say, the words that I want to get across. So that it's not just me thinking about the final outcome that I want to achieve, but what's the change I'm wanting to create. I'm wanting to align my engineering team to thinking that this whack brain idea is a good one, and we should do something that sends pulses into the regolith to be able to find where ice is. How do we make that change so that everyone's working together, so that someone supports an idea, so that someone can work together? So I came up with catalytic communication as a way of thinking about it, because when I think about chemistry and I think about reactions, and catalysis is that moment of lowering the energy that you need for a change to occur. So it helps to accelerate this change. And a catalytic moment can really be that moment where you're taking these elements and making something come to life and sparking a change. And this can be done, most of the time it's done kind of unintentionally. You're throwing elements together, or you're just throwing your piece in from your perspective. But there's this whole other side to think of. And this is very well known by marketing in knowing your audience and knowing how they're going to respond to things. But then it's taking that, for me, it's taking that and going into what is the specific change and how can I get that change to happen, understanding them at their core and how they're going to respond to all these different semiotic systems. So in that structure, first I thought about clarifying intent. So this isn't just the outcome, it isn't just what you want to say, it's the change from and to. What is the thing that I'm wanting to, what's the truth of where I'm starting, and where do I want to get to in the individual, in a group? What's that change that I want to have occur? And framing it in that way. And then connecting, what's the semiotic systems that are going to best initiate that change? Is it going to be better to go through a one-on-one spoken meeting or a presentation? Is it how I lay out the meeting room? Is it the order of events in a presentation? Is it about how I write an email? Is it about a video that I make to help explain it? Is it about bringing someone to a place and letting them see it and touch it and feel it with their own hands? What's going to be that thing that is going to connect and make that change that we want to see? And then there's the catalysis. So I put together a little worksheet that helps me. I just go through it when I've got a sticky problem that I'm trying to really affect some kind of change and be specific about it. And it's just about asking myself some questions so that I can frame my own thinking. Because sometimes we can get very self-focused on the thing we want to say, the thing we want to get across, and this is the thing that I need to get out into the world. But it's not about the thing, it's about the change. And this helps remind me about the change that I'm wanting to make and reshaping my own focus. Because the moment of catalysis has nothing to do with you. You've put out your communication, and the receiving party has the things that are built into them, the cognitive distortions, the history, the past, the different things that are going to affect how they absorb this information. It's already written. And so you're just standing back and letting that happen. You don't really control that moment of catalysis. And once you design these elements and put them in, you really just have to let go. You let that change occur, you see how it works, and you see what you've gotten right and wrong. And just by being intentional and thoughtful, I've found that in my own communication, in my own efforts to try and push change out into the world, it's at least, if not been more successful, it's been more intentional. You don't always get it right. But I wanted to stop blundering through the world and crossing my fingers and hoping that someone won't, break my legs because they're upset at me. In South Africa, I kind of blundered my way through that and came out the other end. I wanted to do it intentionally. I wanted to feel like I was equipped and I was doing this with a purpose and from a place of understanding about how people work, how I work, and how the right communication can make change. So, with that intent and thinking about the change you want to cause, the real challenge isn't just what am I saying, it's what am I causing. So I used to really think that storytelling was just about, artists. It was about writers, authors. It's the copywriters. It's the heads of creative. And that's the box that lives in, and that's the people who are telling stories. And that in my producing, I was doing my part of telling a story. I was trying to enable others so that they could tell stories. Because I was the producer, I was the businessman, and other people were the creatives, and I was just helping them. But really, in my transition to the space industry, that's where I discovered how powerful it is across all areas and all interactions. So it's not just how we describe the world, it is how we shape it. And it's the operating system beneath every role I've ever had, and even the ones that seem unrelated. And you guys all here are already doing it. You do it professionally. It's your work. It's what you put out into the world. And I guess the challenge that I'm putting out to you and the thing that I'm saying to you is that This isn't just a skill, a work skill that you use to satisfy your clients. This is something that you can do, and you already do in all parts of your life, but the intention that you put into the communication you put out into the world to have impacts for customers and clients, that same intention can be directed towards all parts of life. So every time you send an email, every time you dress for the day, every time you make a decision about what you put out into the world, you're communicating. And you're already shaping your own reality, how others see it, and how you see it. So when you pair this intention with connection, and when you stop just transmitting, but instead designing for change, that's when it becomes something else entirely. It becomes catalytic. And it can work for parents, and for leaders, and for politicians, and for startups and founders, for engineers, for anyone. So in everything we do, we're always trying to move something forward. And you don't need a degree to do that. You don't need a piece of paper telling you how to do that. So that's the way that I've tried to think about what I can provide into the world. And that's how I discovered the importance of storytelling in space. You know, when I think about the space industry, we're trying to accomplish something that is really hard to put a box around and for people to understand. Why the hell should we go to the moon? Why should we go to Mars? Why should we spend this money on these things? And why should people invest in these companies? Why should the public care? And this is enabling or defeating of all of that activity. If no one cares about what we're doing, if they don't understand the value, then there's not going to be the support for that industry. So telling the story for space to everyone is one of the key parts of what I try to do. And then bringing partners on board. So we're trying to put together expeditions all around the world to do space analogs. Why should they come along and work with us? So it's been quite a journey for myself, going from self-doubt and limiting beliefs where I really didn't understand how I could be putting this energy into other areas, thinking that there was bits of industry that weren't for me or futures that weren't for me, and to understanding that the stories can change and that the lens that you put around your own reality can shift and change, and it can lead to wonderful and incredible things. So today, I'm putting together exploration missions. I'm trying to answer how we can explore the moon and Mars, and that's a dream come true that I could never have imagined when I was putting together scrappy films and living out of a car in South Africa. I'd like to thank you all for listening today, and I hope that from this you can take away the power of storytelling and intentional communication for change in every aspect of your life. Thank you. I've put a summary of my keynote. I've just posted it. Well, it's going to be posting in about 10 minutes. And if you liked what I had to say, please have a look and share. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you.
Hello, hello. Quick Q&A. Don't forget to get your questions in using that Slido link as we go. Amazing presentation. I do have one question from myself first. Do you get mad when you watch things like Star Trek and some of the words that they use, and you just have that little bit of fury inside you?
Some things, but actually they get it pretty right. You know, you think they had iPads in the next generation in Star Trek, and there's a lot of concepts that they talk about that then inspire. So the storytelling that happens in science fiction directly leads towards scientific breakthroughs. And that's just wild to me, because it starts with that question of what could be possible. So the writers who are sitting there who potentially don't have the scientific background, but they're imagining what could be possible, and they're designing this and putting this together. And then later a scientist comes along and goes, well, actually, that could work if we do this and this and this. And then it can lead to things.
Yeah, right. I'm sure you have plenty of conversations about the accuracy of that in the lunchroom.
Yeah.
Storytelling is ancient wisdom, isn't it? It's been around since the beginning of time. Indigenous cultures use it to pass down wisdom to the younger generation. And it's something that has always been there for us. And I think just one of the many takeaways from your keynote was using that ancient tool that we've always had at our disposal in everything that we do, not just our work, but our lives, how we shape our own stories. And I suppose, what's the common thread that ties together the success across film, space, and defence for you?
I think it's really about providing a vision, and that starts with a story. So to have something happen, to go from something not existing to bringing it into existence, whether that's a defense capability or a space capability or a new product that needs to be designed, it needs to start with describing the vision and telling a story about what the future is going to look like. And that needs storytelling. And so across all of these areas, you're trying to describe the future, and you're trying to describe it in a way that makes other people want to bring that future into reality. And if you get it right, and you inspire people, and there's some logos and logic in it as well, then it'll come true.
You mentioned communication creates change. Where did that idea come from, and how can someone start putting that into practice?
Sure, I think it's something that's it's instinctually known. We know that communication creates change. We know that what we put out into the world can push different outcomes. But I think the thing that made me think about it in that slightly different way is that shift from thinking from my own perspective to thinking to others, which is what we kind of do in marketing when we're looking to share, but then also trying to not just think about outcome. So it was in some of those experiences that I had where I noticed I'd get the outcome that I wanted, but the thing that enabled that, the thing that actually triggered all of that to happen was in between my communication and the outcome. And it was that change. So as I was digging through all these different interactions and these moments and looking at historical examples, there was a moment in the middle where it shifted and that enabled this outcome to happen. So it's not about being something new, it's about just trying to frame and set myself before I go about trying to put something out into the world.
If we take baby steps with this, if we go right back to the beginning, so we know the art of storytelling and its power, but if we start right at the start, curiosity, following your nose, what's baiting you, what's saying, psst, over here, I'd like your attention, little subtle things that are just in our path that because we're so busy and in demand all the time, our phones are pinging, our emails, everything's going. The world's problems are brought to us on our shoulders, making like we feel that we have to carry them. There's curiosity there at every turn and twist, which I think, would you agree, it's the start of where our stories can be shaped from?
Yeah, absolutely. Because being curious about what's possible, that leads to visionary thinking and people talking about where technology or where a product or where an idea, or even just thinking about, I want to have a tradition with my friends where every year we go up to Renmark and with our kids and trying to be able to be curious about what things could look like, curious about what's possible. And I think that then leads to trying to set up this vision of what that could be and then drawing that path to it. But it starts with having a curiosity about possibility. And I think that it was the thing that attracted me to learning so much about space and teaching myself about space was that everything was changing so fast. And this future that could potentially be possible, this future that I grew up watching on Star Trek and thinking was so incredible and inspiring, that some of this could actually come to pass. And my curiosity about whether or not that was possible, about what would be required to make that happen, that took me down those rabbit holes of learning about propulsion and learning about spacecraft and rocketry and learning about, can this be real? And that curiosity took me down that path of education as well.
I think it's worth noting that we're all made different. We know that, that's obvious, right? But I think it's what we're pulled to as well, which is quite special, because I'm not interested in space. I love it. I'm pulled to other things. But hearing you talk is quite inspiring, and I think acknowledging the fact that we are all different and pulled to different things, leaning into what is making you curious is the first step in finding out how to shape those stories. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was what brought me to film production, was being curious about that and curious about production and storytelling. I was an extra on McLeod's Daughters. You can still see a clip of me somewhere doing a backflip into a pool.
Can you still backflip?
No, God, no. So I thought that I wanted to be an actor, but I was a rubbish actor, and I only spent the night before learning my script for an audition for NIDA, because I found that where I was pulled to was more in producing the movies than being in them. And so leaning into that, where my attentions naturally drew and where I would spend hours and hours teaching myself how to do visual effects or how to put together these films, that naturally led to me building skills in that area. And the same came with space. I was curious and I was interested, and by just indulging that passion and indulging that curiosity, I unknowingly built up this foundation of knowledge that allowed me to spring off into another industry. And I didn't even know that I was building it while I was just following my curiosity.
That leads me into one of the questions that came in via Slido. Was upskilling with a university degree an option, or did this seem unattainable for your journey? If so, I'd love to know more about the barriers for this.
Yeah, so I didn't go to university, so it's hard to go from not going to university to doing a master's. That with the MBA, you can cite your previous experience. So again, when I first saw that, I thought, well, this isn't for me because I'm not a tertiary educated bachelor of whatever holder. And it wasn't until I looked into it deeper that I saw that previous experience could count. And given I'd done a lot of business in owning my business and running productions, that was sufficient to get me in the door. And I remember the interview, and I should have already known this lesson by then, but I went to the interview thinking that there was no chance they were going to let me do the course because I wasn't qualified to do the course. But it turns out they were thrilled to have me and to have a different perspective. And I think that was something that I didn't value either. I thought that I was the one trying to reach up. I was the one who was hoping to be a part of this exalted class of people who are worthy of being in this space. But really, my unique background and different perspective was highly valued. And I had no idea that was the case until I did that course. So the barriers were within me.
I know exactly how you feel. I came in a past life, I was working in healthcare comms, and then I ended up working at ASC doing comms for submarines, which very outside of my knowledge base, and I learned quite quickly. But similar to me working with the submarine engineers, you're working with space engineers and scientists. Is space engineers a thing, or did I make that up?
That's right, yeah.
We'll go with it. Space engineers and scientists trying to tell their stories in a way a simple person like me can understand. What advice do you have for people working in that kind of comm space and navigating those what are sometimes challenging relationships?
Yeah, when you work in the creative industries, you know all the different types that are out there. The technicians, the directors, the executives. There are these archetypes for a reason, and they all. When you're looking to collaborate with them, there's different methods that you use to collaborate with the different types to get the best outcome. And it's no different with aerospace engineers and with mechanical engineers and with executives and people in the space industry. The thing that helps with any type of communication and collaboration, where you're trying to take the work that they're doing, you're trying to take the essence and the truth of their endeavors and efforts and the things that they've dedicated their lives to, is curiosity. Is curiosity in wanting to understand, wanting to be able to comprehend, even if you're not an expert, but having that appreciation for what it is that they do and being willing to do a bit of a deep dive into some of the sticky stuff that might feel really uncomfortable because there's some scary math or there's something in there that feels outside your reach. So stretching into that and getting your elbows a bit dirty, that helps me tell their stories because I can step into their world and try to do my best to make sense of it and then ask them how I'm doing and ask them how my understanding of it is. Because the worst thing would be trying to have someone be a mouthpiece who's telling your story and taking your story and spitting it out into the world, and they've got no idea what they're talking about and they've got no idea what you're trying to do because that translation is just going to be wrong every time.
That's beautifully said. What does catalytic communication actually look like?
So what it looks like is starting that process with the intent of change and just changing the focus from the outcome and changing the focus from the message to the change. And that's in the middle of the message and the outcome. So the message might be, if we think in marketing terms, we've got a sale on Friday, and the outcome is sales go up. But the change is someone perhaps making a different decision at that time. So where are they when they're making that decision? What's the thing that's going to prompt that decision? Do they even care about sales? Do they care about this? Do they care about that? Perhaps it's a position of value. Are they looking for something that is of a perceived higher value, and you're trying to make a change so that they're willing to go something that might be lower value perception? So it's in those interior kind of moments of deliberation where that action potential happens. And so we're trying to change that. And when I focus on that, rather than the message and rather than the outcome, that's when I need to be aware of those, but the message would then change, the input changes, and then the catalysis is that part in the middle, and then the outcome is hopefully the thing that I'm intending to happen.
All right, challenging one for you. How do you get your message across, especially a complicated message, when you literally only have 2 minutes allocated to you in an agenda to push your idea?
I love the quote from Mark Twain where he said, "I didn't have time to write a short letter, so I wrote a long one." It's much easier to expound and have a lot of space to fill with your idea. And I think we know in marketing that the hardest thing is condensing and distilling a message. And I think that for the shorter the opportunity is, the harder you have to work. So it's like an exponential increase of difficulty. So when if I've got an hour to explain to you why my product is better, that's a lot of time for me to give you all the detail. If I've got 5 seconds, I better make it count. And so the shorter that your time is in order to communicate something, the harder you have to work to distill it. And I think it's that distillation where you start with something big, and then the context of the change that you're trying to make is the thing that's going to inform that razor blade. When you're cutting stuff out and when you're simplifying, why are you simplifying it to this and not to that? Because the choice is, you've got so much choice for where you could go and what you could do, and making that decision for this over that, it's all the context of how are you interpreting how that's going to result in that outcome. And that change of framing is the thing that I hope is going to result in those razor cuts being well made and being accurate and then resulting in the result that I want to have.
Now, we've got a bit of a focus on AI a little bit later on today and tomorrow. Would you use AI to help you condense a message, or is that way too risky?
No, absolutely not. So AI is wonderful for if you're trying to absorb information, it can be really helpful. So it can condense stuff that is already out there into some key points, and it can help you to absorb, but it doesn't help you to really create. And it can provide inputs, but I'll give you an example for this speech. You start off, you say, I need to write a speech about this and a keynote about this, and here's the things I want to talk about, and it spits out this nice long structure and all of these things that says, this is what you should say. And you look at it, and because you're not immersed in that conversation, you're not immersed, you're not holding it in your temporary memory storage, you look at it and you go, well, that looks good. Yeah, I think that's good. But then it's not until I started to read the entire thing that I realized that there's a whole lot of crap in there that didn't actually land, that didn't make sense, and it's only once you're holding all of that, and there's this concept called deep work that I really love for sticky problems, where you have to get into a sense of flow, and that's when you're holding all the information in your brain. Not an AI brain, in your brain. And you're able to make good decisions then because you're able to have that judgment across the range of things that you need to take into account. And AI outsources that. And it can't really do that interpolation and that distillation of the ideas into something that's actually value. You're giving the razor blade over to AI to make those cuts for you. And it's not very good at that.
I think it's worth noting as well that storytelling is a formula. Babies aren't born with the ability to say, you're going to be a natural storyteller. This little guy here is going to be on stage at the tender age of 2 days old. It's a formula to learn. So I think if anyone's in the audience now thinking, I'm not very good at storytelling, I don't like public speaking, things like that, or even just communicating a message, it is a skill that is learnt with a formula. And the more you do it, the better you get. It's a muscle memory. It's a strength thing. Like pulling a dumbbell, right?
Absolutely, but it's also, there's the strengths in different areas. So you can be an incredible storyteller and not be able to speak. Yeah. It's not necessarily about spoken words or written words. Whoever designed this space to have this view, they're a storyteller. You know, the buildings out there. When I worked in London, the company River Film, they specialize in doing pieces for high-end architectural developments. So we did a brand piece for Merdeka 118, the big tower in Kuala Lumpur. And so thinking about how the physical space tells a story, how it makes us feel. You know the difference between walking into a very dour office that just brings you down and going to a place that inspires you. So you can be storytelling in lots of different ways. It's not just public speaking. It's not just things that you would traditionally ascribe to storytelling, and it is like a muscle.
How do you tell authentic stories when you have to protect confidential and classified information? What's your advice for people who might work in restricted industries?
Yeah, I guess it's whether that content is going to be the thing that enables the change. So if it is, you're kind of stuck because you're not allowed to use it. You're not allowed to share it.
Don't put it in the AI.
Yeah, it's like if I could only tell you this classified thing, you'd change your mind. And I think that you need, when you're focusing on what that outcome is, there might be other pathways. So the more you understand a problem, the more that you can find different pathways to solving that problem. So when you're framing it in this way, it might be that you think that that the key information is actually this, but there might be a completely different pathway to achieving that change you're wanting to have, and you don't need to use those particular tools. So it can be difficult, but I think that restrictions are actually where creativity really comes to play. When you have restrictions to what you can do, what you can say, what your budget is, what your time is that you have with an audience, those restrictions is where creative solutioneering comes out.
Do you have an example of a time you've used unexpected catalytic communication to secure funding for a project?
Well, I can think of one where I prevented the cancellation of one.
Just as good?
Yeah, I was doing a documentary piece for a development in Shanghai, and it was this big area, and they wanted to tell about the ways that they were considering urban design. And a lot of Chinese developments were very much about just cramming in as many buildings as you can, and they were trying to express how they were different from this traditional way of overdevelopment in China. And they were really considering the lived experience of the people who were there. And so we were doing this documentary piece where we were going to successful places in Shenzhen, in Tokyo, in Japan, and really showing off where it's worked in other places and getting experts' opinions on that, and then contrasting it with what they did there. And I went into a meeting in Shanghai, and there was a secret boss who I didn't know about. There's always a kind of lurking secret boss who comes out right at the end and goes, surprise, turns out I'm meant to have control over this and input on this, and I haven't been consulted, and I'm going to torpedo this whole thing just to swing this around. And that was fun. So we're sitting there, and there's about 10 people on that side who I thought was my client, was sitting on my side with me. And there's this chair in the middle. The guy comes in, and he's not speaking any English. I'm getting it translated to me by my local producer, and he's saying, you know, why are we shooting in Tokyo? Why are we doing this? Why aren't we doing this? I wasn't told about this. I wasn't told about that. Why have you got these foreigners here? They don't know anything about China. We need to shut down the project. And just really just tearing into these people, and they were terrified. And in that moment, I needed a change because he was about to can the whole project, and there would have been a lot of money lost. So I was listening to the translations, and I was trying to understand what was the current thing and what was the thing I wanted to change. The current thing is that he felt like his power had been usurped, and it hadn't been respected. And he felt that his authority had been undermined by not being included. And so he needed to be given a visible, showable proof of power and authority over this project and over these people. So I interjected, assuming that he knew English, which luckily he did. And I said, I hear what you're saying, and I absolutely agree. You're right. I thought that we were going to Tokyo to shoot this and this and this, but actually it's not going to have that. And where we need to be shooting is in London. And so we need to cancel Tokyo. We shouldn't do that. We need to go to London instead. And you know what? I've got people in London. I can get that spun up. And it's more about this that you're trying to say. It's about this that you're trying to say. And I was just giving his words back to him. And he went, yeah, that. These guys know China better than Chinese. And he gets up and he's like, cool, all right, my work here is done. And off he strode, never to look at the project ever again. And in that moment, it was about giving him what he needed so that his perception of what was happening in that environment changed. And it changed from one of a lack of control to one of impacting control. And it was actually a fairly simple shift. So we were able to continue the production midstream. We changed course. We indulged his own sense of loss of control and his ego and gave him what he was looking for in that moment. And so thinking about the change I wanted and the storytelling of putting him on this pedestal, because he really wanted to be on that pedestal, satisfied the change that I needed to have occur.
Meeting a need, basically.
Yes.
And listening.
Yeah.
What's your all-time favourite sci-fi film?
Oh, probably Interstellar. Yeah. There's
any fans in the room?
Interstellar, Christopher Nolan. Yes.
There we go.
The thing that I love about it is not only that it's, I think it's really expanded a lot of people's understanding of how the universe works in a scientifically accurate way. There's a lot of like special bugs in sci-fi that they use to tell the story, warp drives and different things that just break reality a bit in order to tell a story. But it was very much grounded in reality and this concept of time dilation, all of those things. Now, in the end, with the black hole and the 4D time-space beings, that was a little bit out there. But a lot of it was based on things that are true, how being around a gravity well, you could have years and years pass for someone in orbit and then only a few days pass for someone on the ground. And I think that these are such hard ideas to wrap your mind around, like quantum mechanics and general relativity kind of broke everyone's brain when it came out in the early 1900s, and we're still trying to figure it out. So having people get curious about it, I think that's a huge success.
I've got some serious plot hole issues with that movie, but we won't go into that. That's a YouTube rabbit hole for later. Yeah. Thank you very much, Jeremy. You've been amazing. Big round of applause for Jeremy.
Thank you.
Morning tea.
Morning tea. Give them 5 minutes, they're still setting up, but bathrooms are located just at the main doors on the left and the right, and there's no smoking inside or outside on the terrace.
Exactly. I think it's every event. I've not known ever an event to someone to light up a cigarette or a vape mid years ago. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like it's a written rule now for all of us that we can't do those things, which is fantastic.
That's
it's
it.
Moving in the right direction.
If you have dietary requirements, there is a dietaries table out there. If you have a very specific dietary requirement, please see one of the Oval staff members to direct you to the Oval supervisor.
And the B2C sessions will stay here with you, and B2B will be in the John Halbert room, which is, if we go out here, just down the long kind of...
Just down that way.
And you get a lovely view as you leave. So apparently it's looking okay now, but the weather may change. So at least we're in a lovely
And that'll be in about
space.
30 minutes' time. So, you're all free for about 30, 40 minutes.
Thank you, everyone.